Welcome. Come in. Sit down. Not there. That's better. I understand you've been sent to me by your superior due to your interest in our mutual enemy. The werewolves, the lupines, the shapeshifters. Undoubtedly they are few, but one is more than enough for my stomach to take. Fortunately, one of the tribes is doing a good job of reducing their number for us. That tribe happens to be the Black Furies. Oh, you've heard of them. Well done, you and your research. Yes, the Black Furies are warrior women. Xena hopped up on Stim. Feminazis with fur. More fur than a feminazi might usually have. Oh, I come across as crass and mocking and slightly misogynistic, but you do not know the half of it, and it would be a mistake to underestimate the Black Furies just by throwing jokes their way, just by throwing insults in their direction and at their gender. Their teeth, their claws are as sharp as any male, perhaps more so because they take those files to them. But no, the Black Furies are an enemy that we have underestimated before, and we shall not underestimate again. These bitches in this tribe, they're obsessed with history. Unlike us, with our pragmatic view of the modern era, they seem to view everything in their past as fact. Every myth, every tale. They believe that they are responsible for the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember of the Old Testament. Supposedly that when Lot gave up his daughters to be gang-raped by the citizens of those fair cities, the Black Furies descended from the hills with outrageous fury, given their name, and slaughtered, levelled both of those cities. Supposedly, the Black Furies were controlling Athens for the best part of a century due to some disagreement with a Greek goddess. They traced their lineage back to Greece, you understand. The Furies of myth, yes. They believe that they can trace their lineages back to the Gorgons, and that even Medusa was one of theirs. I hope you realise how fantastical and ridiculous all of this sounds, yes? Alternately, some of them claim that they mastered the Mongol horde. Others claim, rather ashamedly, that their ancestors fell on all fours and received the Mongol horde. In truth, I cannot speak for which tales are true and which are lies, but I do know this, that many a race and many a people that claims fantastical deeds but has no proof for any, well, it's just made up of liars. And when you happen to present evidence to the contrary, it takes the wind out of their sails. It is the same with the Black Fury. If you can present evidence that one of their far-flung stories is in fact a fabrication, well, it can send them into a great depression, rendering them practically immobile. It isn't a tactic I advise. Not particularly. Mostly due to the fact that a Black Fury would listen to one of your stories about their past as soon as rip your face off and gut you. A Black Fury would rip your face off and gut you just for being male, before even checking your badge to see who you work for. Yes, this tribe is filled with rage, as are all werewolves, unpredictable, zealous, fanatics. Do not underestimate them on account of their gender. Still, they like to hold to the, shall we say, positive elements of their gender as well. Without attempting to appear misogynistic, there are differences between females and males. And these Black Furies, well, they like to style themselves as being compassionate, as being maternal, as being one great big divine sisterhood. But you recall how I mentioned before that they are doing our job for us, assisting in reducing their number? Whenever the Black Furies give birth to a male, and they are 99% female, these werewolves, my research tells me, and I have researched them for a very long time, they crack the skulls of these babes against rocks, or throw them into fires in a sacrifice to their unicorn totem. Not a unicorn, Pegasus. It's difficult to sometimes recall the difference. Pegasus, that's it. How do I remember? Well, I once knew a black spiral dancer that claimed that he had, shall we say, taken Pegasus for a ride and even broken its wings. His thrusting was so hard. The black spirals are a vulgar breed of creature, but they can tell an amusing tale if you can stand the spittle that will drench your face whilst they are recounting it. Yes, they are prone to child sacrifice. Oh, noble and pure defenders of Gaia, they do practice child sacrifice. Certainly, some do not. Some do not. Some will give their male offspring up for adoption with other tribes, but it is known that there is an infection plaguing this tribe, and they are giving birth to more and more males and less females, and so they sacrifice more and more males to their goddess, to Gaia, trying to find out what it is that they can do to bring more females into the fold. Well, perhaps it would help them if they did not hold their mutant offspring so sacred. Unlike most other tribes, their meties, their aberrations spawned by the breeding of two werewolves, are for some reason protected by the Black Furies, much as they are in the Bone Gnawer tribe. While the Black Furies certainly cling to lineage as if it is something of great importance, they don't do it to the same degree as the Silver Fangs. They will not be able to recite names as well as, shall we say, deeds. But remind them of all the children they have sacrificed, remind them of all the mutants that they protect, and you're likely to draw their ire, so I would perhaps advise not doing so. I mentioned Greece before. That's right, they trace their lineage back to Greece, and nowadays they are spread across the Mediterranean, weaker in Greece than they used to be due to some of our efforts, might I add. The Mediterranean, the good old United States, and the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest is a battleground that I would choose to forget if I could. It is not our finest hour. We were sure that victory was in the palm of our hands, but ever since the Black Furies have led the vanguard in that rainforest, well, we have, shall we say, found ourselves neutered. We made the mistake before, time and time again, might I add, of sending increasing numbers of Fomori, increasing numbers of mortal, human scum servants, wielding mechanized death in every form against the Black Furies head on. It doesn't matter what you're armed with. If a Black Fury gets a bead on you with their shall we say, feminine instincts, and picks up your scent, well, they'll rip you limb from limb. Doesn't matter what you are. How we have lost that rainforest for so long, I do not know. And certainly we will make a counterattack at some point. But for now, that battle is theirs. If it has taught us anything, it is that a head-on battle with the Black Furies is not a good idea. But neither is an attack via the rear. The same black spiral dancer that I was mentioning earlier once told me of their moots, their conclaves, their, what do they call them, Uraka Magelis, I believe, something Greek. Their coffee mornings, their mothers' meetings, he laughed, he joked. He said that the Black Furies like to get together to have big powwows and bemoan the fate of women across the world. And he was sure that while their guards were down and they were discussing their stories, singing their songs, recounting their tales, weeping for the plight of women all over Gaia's divine surface, that he would be able to take a few of them out, and then leap back into the Umbra. Well, he did not, perhaps, account for the fact that they were all armed to the teeth, bristling with weapons, filled with rage. Oh, what he did not count for was that the Black Furies at their moots, they whipped themselves up into a whirling dervish on the very edge of explosion. He was the fuse, shall we say, that lit the powder keg. That Black Spiral Dancer did not return. His skull did. So you cannot attack them from the front, you cannot attack them from the rear, but their maternity, their sisterhood, their compassion, their hearts are where they are at their weakest. They're not necessarily the most unified tribe, but they certainly feel a common affinity with women, with children, with those that need protecting. And so that is where you strike them. There are two methods of doing so. Let's look at the rage-based attack first. Black Furies treasure their kinfolk, but they cannot watch them day and night. Some of these kinfolk, well, they leave them alone, you can track them down. You then make an effort to find a cairn inhabited mostly by male werewolves. You do not approach the cairn whilst the werewolves are there. You do not despoil it despite the temptation to do so. You instead collect spore or fur, something that denotes a male. Then you contact one of our friends in the first teams. The first teams will massacre those kinfolk. They will do it in a vile, brutal, horrible way, vicious, not with guns, with knives, with blades, make it look like a werewolf, raged and split those kinfolk in twain. Then you can go around, scattering your evidence, give a call to one of our friends at Magadon. They'll make sure the evidence is planted in just the right place, and they'll make sure there's no evidence of your having been there. Now, 9 times out of 10, the Black Fury will not take the bait. Whilst being creatures of rage, they will be able to pick up that this is a ruse. They will mourn the loss of their kinfolk and find others. 1 time out of 10, they are creatures of rage. They will find that evidence that you planted, they will sniff the male on it, and those misandrist whores in that tribe will automatically presume that that male must be responsible. They will tear across town or through the woods or wherever to that cairn, to where they will find that male, and if you can do a bit of forward planning, try and get that male to be a Get of Fenris, because when the Get of Fenris are attacked, they do not back down, they do not reason, they do not try and explain away what their actions were or weren't. Instead, they'll just fight to the death. At the very least, you should have 1 dead werewolf out of that encounter. Whatever the outcome, we win. So that's how you attack a Black Fury based on her rage. But her compassion, her maternal instincts, well, pick a nursery, an orphanage, a shelter for battered women. You do a bit of charity work. Get Magadon to supply that shelter for battered women with some perfume, some hairspray, some drugs, some sanitary products, all the lovely things that a battered woman needs while she's being sheltered from her horrible husband. You have them laced with worm taint, a higher dosage than usual. You want those women to become so coated in worm taint that they're starting to do vile things to one another, horrific things to one another, probably terrible things to their children as well, who are just caught up in all of this, wondering, why are mummy and daddy fighting again? You want these women to become as monstrous as their husbands ever were. It's at that point, and at that point, you point the Black Fury in the direction of this shelter. Discreetly. They'll see it as a quest to save these women from their dreadful plight, because Black Furies do love to save women from dreadful plights. And you should even let them get so far. You should allow them to form bonds, because the Black Furies are very fond of their bonds, of their friendships, of their fealty. They, if they make a bond, will never ever give it up. Think on that as you increase the dosage one last time to violent amounts, so that the target does not just become worm-tainted, becomes Fomori, becomes something hideous, something aberrant, something worm-like. The Black Fury's already made a bond. What does the Black Fury do? Raise the shelter for battered women? Destroy all those worm-tainted females within? And deal with the consequences thereafter? That would make her take a hit on her little patch of morality, wouldn't it? Or perhaps, more likely in my history of doing this, as the other werewolves congregate around the shelter of battered women and demand these Fomori are put down, that Black Fury will stand up and say, "No, they are my wards. I will protect them and I will cure them, despite the fact there is no hope for them at all." With any luck, the Black Fury will remain there, will be allowed. It's not so bad if the other werewolves descend on the Black Fury as a lost cause and kill her. Or the women in the shelter. Either way, it's going to do some serious numbers on her mind space, shall we say. But let's say that she remains there, slowly being corrupted, slowly falling to the worm, as all of her wards are turned Fomori, possessed by innumerable banes. She may even become receptive to one as well. A Black Fury is not a werewolf to be engaged in combat. Very few werewolves are. A Black Fury's weapons, its heart, its compassion, are also its strongest weaknesses, as far as we're concerned. Turn those strengths into weaknesses. Turn the Black Fury into something black and spirally. The spiral's over there, you say to her. Why not walk it? See what you find.